Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing announced that they've signed Devlin DeFrancesco to run full-time next year in the NTT INDYCAR Series. DeFrancesco will drive the number 30 Honda, replacing Pietro Fittipaldi. This also confirms that the 2024 Indy Next champion Louis Foster will be in the number 45 Honda, alongside the returning Graham Rahal in the number 15 Honda. This is also a return to IndyCar for Devlin DeFrancesco, who spent last season competing in IMSA's GTD category. He's previously ran 2 full seasons in IndyCar with Andretti, finishing 23rd and 22nd in the standings, respectively. In 2022, DeFrancesco finished lower in the standings than Jimmy Johnson, who mostly struggled during his short IndyCar career. Now, with another chance to compete in the Premier Open Wheel Series in North America, DeFrancesco will have to make the most of this opportunity with RLL. Team co-owner Bobby Rahal said he feels confident they can have some good races together after seeing him competitive at times during his previous IndyCar stint. The photo courtesy of Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing. Kobe, starting with you on this one. Do you expect to see Devlin DeFrancesco perform better or worse with RLL compared to his 2 years with Andretti?
I'll be honest, guys. Outside of that incredible start at the Indy Road Course a few years ago, when Devlin made that crazy move on the outside, passing multiple cars to get into lead, I haven't really seen much from him. Where I can say, yes, this guy, has shows that he truly belongs on the IndyCar grid full time. That was probably the one highlight of his IndyCar career. That I have to go hands down, I'll bow to you. That was a spectacular move that I still remember to this day. But overall, it's just been a whole bunch of struggles for Devlin DeFrancesco in his 2 years at Andretti. And to be fair, when Andretti was a 4-car team, that 4 team was always the team that usually seemed to struggle a lot compared to the other 3. So I guess take from that as you will. But interesting move here by RLL. I didn't really see Devlin as a candidate for this car, but the March report from Racer.com reported for the last several weeks that Devlin has emerged as the leading candidate to take this seat. And I was like, yeah, this is an interesting move, because we're going to talk about him in a little bit. It seemed like Yuri Vips have been a candidate. Then you have Linus Lundqvist out there as well, looking for a seat, and a lot of other drivers who would love to be on the IndyCar grid full time. But yeah, definitely an interesting choice by going to Devlin. But based on what we saw in his 2 years of racing with Andretti Global, I think Devlin definitely has a lot to prove in IndyCar, and we'll see how his second stint goes for him. We'll have to see how RLL is able to do over the offseason. We know it seemed like the ovals are their weakest point so far. Are we going to be talking about them in the last row shootout again? And if so, Devlin might be in some trouble come month of May. But yeah, interesting partnership here. What do you think, Matt?
As Meatloaf once said, Kobe, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say about DeFrancesco being in that, he's absolutely guaranteed almost to be in the frame for that last row shootout at Indy, as Graham Rahal has been over the last couple of years. It's an interesting signing. As you say, didn't light the world on fire at all in his last couple of seasons, and to go back to a GT category in IMSA and then come back up again is a bit of a strange career trajectory, but here he is, and he's got the gig. Good luck to him. I think Rahal as a unit there are going to struggle. We know Graham on his day can be handy, but he hasn't had a great couple of years. Ever since that double that he did at Detroit, he's barely been seen really at the front end of the field since. Of course, Louis Foster, as you mentioned, Josh, coming in as the Indy Next champion. He's going to be having a learning year. They're going to need DeFrancesco to be, constantly running around Graham's pace or just off it and ahead of Foster. If it turns out that Foster gets on board with the IndyCar quickly and is, leading the team or doing better than Graham on a regular basis, why is that going to leave Dev in the future? Obviously, he brings plenty of funding with him as well, which is key to most of this portion of the signing. So, as we talked about with Grosjean, perhaps not coming back to Juncos or anywhere next year, IndyCar with this hybrid system is becoming very, very expensive for drivers to bring enough funding to get the seats. And we talked about that with Jamie Chadwick last week as well on the show. Looks like her IndyCar dream is pretty much over now. So, going to be interesting to see where he lands. But maybe being I suppose he's the second car in this team is probably better than being the fourth car at Andretti, where he was a couple of years ago.
Absolutely, and more on team owner Bobby Rahal as well, because during the summer months when it was announced that Christian Lundgaard would depart the team for Aaron McLaren, Rahal preached the importance of loyalty in a Racer.com interview with Marshall Pruitt. Now, when discussing potential replacements for Lundgaard, he said that he had a great deal of loyalty to Yuri Vips. Now, after losing his deal as a Red Bull driver, Vips has spent the last couple of years as a simulator and reserve driver at RLL. While Rahal entered an extra car for Vips in 3 IndyCar races in the last 2 seasons, it ultimately didn't materialize into a full-time stint. The link to this Racer.com article is in the video description below. Matt, if you were Yuri Vips, would you stay on as the team's simulator and reserve driver for 2025? If offered, or would you move on altogether after being passed over for Devlin DeFrancesco?
So many jokes, so little time. We're talking about F2 at the top of the show. Vips was a standout in F2 at times. He was. You look at him and go, God, he's going places in a hurry. It didn't quite happen for him, and all the things that happened off track as well. Then he got the IndyCar driving up. Maybe this is the new pathway for him. He's got to be in the conversation, hasn't he? I guess if any of those guys in the top team have to miss a race through illness or injury, and he gets a chance to get in the car and have a go and impresses, then that will perhaps open doors for him for 26. So I guess that's where he's got to be in the window to get a drive if you're, again, going off to do something like IMSA or Trans Am or something, I don't know, whatever, just to keep your eye in. Maybe we talked about it with Formula 1 a lot, haven't we? Once you're out of the bubble, it's very, very difficult to come back in unless you're Nico Hulkenberg or Fernando Alonso, really, over the last handful of years. So I think he's in the best spot he can probably be, again, with what backing he may be bringing to the table. So I think he's, kind of the first ready and willing substitute there for RLL if they do need to bring him in.
Yeah, it's really going to come down to what Yuri Vips wants to do. I mean, it has to be frustrating for him, obviously, because since he exited Formula 2 and tried to find something else with his racing career, it really seems like he's zeroed in and trying to get on the IndyCar grid full time. But as we've been saying, for various reasons, it's getting even harder and harder, to get a seat in IndyCar. And although Yuri Vips, is obviously not going to be bringing the level of funding that a Devlin DeFrancesco is going to bring, it'd be interesting to see what he would do if he ended up getting a full-time seat in IndyCar. And I thought it was really funny, Bobby Rahal's talking about, how he has a great deal of loyalty to Yuri Vips. And then, then you end up not giving Yuri Vips a seat. But at the end of the day, we know money talks and this is a business first. So Bobby Rahal had to make a business decision. And that obviously did not include Yuri Vips. If Yuri's not better with the team, for not giving him Pietro Fittipaldi's seat for 2025, and if they still have the role, maybe he decides to stay on. And like you're saying, Matt, this is IndyCar racing. Anything can happen. You have the Indianapolis Motor Speedway where you're going 230 miles per hour. And you hate to say it, but there's a high possibility, that someone could get injured. Whether it's in practice and qualifying in the race itself. So or in any of the other oval races, if an IndyCar driver at Rahal gets injured, Yuri Vips would be a standing there. And if he does extremely well, maybe he'll be rewarded down the road. Maybe not by Rahal, but maybe another team will snap him up. Or if a different team is offering a reserve role and Yuri wants to change the scenery in IndyCar, we don't really see a lot, of official reserve drivers in the IndyCar series like we see in Formula E and Formula 1. But maybe that could be an option as well. I remember when Yuri was, with RLL, Bobby Rahal brought him to Road Atlanta for the IMSA season finale at Petit Le Mans, and he introduced him to some of the people in the LMP2 paddock. So maybe sports cars could be somewhere Yuri could land, but he's definitely way too talented of a driver, to just be sitting on the sidelines, not racing anything at all at some point. I imagine that, he's just going to get frustrated and he's going to try to, be back out there actually in a car because, the longer you sit out not racing, that's not really good for a race car driver at all.